Spooksters, sorry it's been a while. I came down with the flu, it kind of fucked up all my plans. But we back today, and it is a very special day. Good old Hallows Eve. To celebrate, we are finally going to be taking a look at 3 works by the famous horror mangaka Junji Ito. Those being Shiver, Tomie, and Uzumaki. It's definitely odd that it took me this long to get around to reading these because I am a huge horror fan. It's actually my favorite genre in fiction. So I don't know what I was waiting for, but now that we're here, let's just jump into it. So first up, we have Shiver. This is a collection of 9 of Junji Ito's stories released all throughout his career. They range to about 30 to 50 pages each. They're not very long at all, and they each revolve around some kind of spooky concept. They're ranging from all sorts of stuff, you know, like haunted records, balloon heads, so some crazy pimple shit. These are weird, man. These are not like your typical horror stuff you would think of. These are all very crazy, high concept, absurd types of shit. Like, I'm pretty sure Junji Ito drinks from the same fountain that Araki does when he comes up with stand powers in JoJo, because some of this shit is absolutely wild. And of course, the purpose of all of these stories is to creep the shit out of you. And oftentimes that's kind of what happens. So all of these stories usually have, you know, like a little bit of setup showing off some of the characters, who they are, introducing this weird concept, and then in, you know, the second half of the story, shit goes bonkers. And then they usually end on a rather abrupt or ambiguous note, like most horror short stories do, even more long horror stories. And I have to say, almost all of these do a really good job at all of those elements. The ideas here are very chilling, very creepy. It's hard for a manga to be scary in, you know, the same sense that movies or video games can be, because, you know, the tension is very different when you're just controlling how fast the story moves for you. You know, there's no sound design, there's no interactivity, and because it's all so absurd, none of this stuff is really relatable. It won't keep me up at night. It's not some, you know, like John Carpenter's Halloween stuff that could happen in real life. But all this stuff definitely is really unsettling, and I find myself oftentimes putting myself into these situations thinking like, alright, what would I do in this situation? Oh, I'd probably be fucked. That's terrifying. Now, while I did like most of these stories, there were a few that I didn't find very interesting, notably one about this ugly fashion model. I'll leave it at that. And while I said the endings are abrupt and ambiguous, which I often like, I sometimes find that these endings are a bit too abrupt, so I left a bit disappointed not knowing more. I know that was the intention, but you know, I'm greedy. I want to see more of this cool, creepy shit. On that note, my 2 favorite stories from this collection have to be the namesake Shiver. This one involves a curse where holes start appearing all around your body, and it's called Shiver because when the wind goes through these holes, it, you know, goes up all your bones and then makes you shiver. That gave me some chills right there when I read that. That's some spooky stuff that I never want to think about again. And then you'll have Greased. Holy shit. Definitely some of the most horrifying imagery out of everything we're going to be talking about today. Made a huge lasting impression on me. I don't think I'm ever going to forget about this story, and man, it makes you feel dirty. I actually had to go take a shower after I read this. Like, I'd already taken one that day, but after reading this, I'm like, no, I gotta, this is nasty. But what makes some of these stories so good, aside from all the creepy imagery and ideas, is that Junji Ito is very, very good at setting things up very quickly. Like, in a short story, you only have a few pages to set up who these characters are and the setting and all this stuff, and he does it extremely well. There's not really much to these characters, there can't be, it's a short story, but you really get a good sense of who these people are, how they would react in certain situations, and it all makes for even more compelling material. So overall, I thought Shiver was a pretty good read. Some stories are better than others. I would definitely recommend it if you are a fan of horror, and I will be giving this one a 7 out of 10. Although one thing I forgot to mention about Shiver is that it does involve a story called The Painter, which introduces us to a young woman, a very beautiful young woman, who seems to have the ability to get inside people's heads, manipulate them to do crazy things, and cause them to do crazy things to themselves and other people. That woman's name is Tomie. That is right, a character who just started off as a simple short story, spawned this gigantic 700-page series. So who is Tomie, and what are her motives? Well, you don't find out. But one thing you do find out about Tomie is that she's pretty whack. You see, like I said, Tomie is very beautiful. She has the ability to seduce people. They'll do her bidding. They'll do anything she says, even kill people. But Tomie also can't die. She is immortal in the most, I'm so excited to say this word, eldritch sense you could think of. You see, when Tomie dies or gets killed, usually the latter, because people are driven so insane by her that they just end up snapping and off in the bitch. It's not really a spoiler, because that's like the whole point of everything. Every time Tomie dies, she regenerates and grows back. However, if you cut her up into little pieces, every single little piece is going to regenerate into a new Tomie. And all those aspects about her character are the basis for the Tomie series, which is another collection of short stories, but this time, of course, they all involve Tomie. Now, at first, I was under the impression that this was actually like a full series, like a full story from start to finish. And when I found out it wasn't, I was kind of worried, because I'm like, can you really have this concept in like a dozen or so different stories and still have it be fresh? Well, yes, you can, because Junji Ito utilizes this premise to its full potential. Tomie is a very, very creepy character, and he puts her into a wide variety of situations, some of which you would never think of, and then you just watch the madness play out. People fall in love with Tomie, people kill for Tomie, people kill Tomie, Tomie returns. All of those things happen repeatedly throughout this series, but it never gets stale because of how Junji Ito experiments with different settings, different characters, the different circumstances, and it makes for some really, really awesome horror. Much like Shiver, this has some very, very creepy imagery, and definitely some stuff that will stick with me for a while. The thing is though, like I said, throughout this whole story, Tomie is always Tomie, so it does get a bit predictable. You never know like what the setting or characters are going to be or whatever. But you know, once you read enough of these, at one point once you start a story, you can kind of guess where it's going. You're like, oh shit, Tomie is going to show up and do all this stuff. And she does. It's always cool to see, but it does start to get a bit predictable as it goes on. That being said, I did find the final story of this collection to be probably the best and a really good send-off for the character, even if the ending is just as abrupt and ambiguous as all of his others. So yeah, Tomie is some really, really awesome stuff. I really enjoyed this one more than Shiver, and I will be giving it an 8 out of 10. And finally, let's discuss Uzumaki. Now, if you've seen my top 30 video, you probably already know what I think of Uzumaki, but I absolutely love this one. Unlike the other two things we talked about, this is a complete series from start to finish. I mean, it's still very short, and it does have a bit of a short story feel to it because there's a lot of, you know, episodic stuff, but it does revolve around two characters, Kirie and her boyfriend Suichi, who are high schoolers in a small Japanese town. Now, this small town is pretty fucking cursed, let me tell you. It is infected with the spiral. What is the spiral? Well, we all know what a spiral is. It's just a, you know, a harmless shape. But when you stare at it long enough, you start to notice that it's more than just a shape. It's beautiful. It's an experience. It's a work of art. It just goes around and around and around, and it never stops. And it makes people go absolutely fucking insane. It starts off pretty small. People end up dying. There's a lot of weird spiral symbolism all over the place. But, you know, you can just chalk it up to people being whack. But as it goes on, things start to get more and more extreme to the point where you're like, y'all gotta get the fuck out of this town. The people do seem rather oblivious to this though. I mean, they are aware that weird stuff is happening, but for some reason, they don't seem to care all that much. Like, you may have seen some crazy girl spiral into nothing the other day, but you know, you still gotta go to school. You still gotta do your tests and shit. At first I didn't like this. I thought, I'm like, why aren't these people reacting any differently? Like, this is fucked. But once you begin to realize that this could just be the curse affecting people, then, you know, it starts to make a bit more sense. Now, Shuichi in particular, he's the only one who's really catching on to how fucking weird some of this stuff is, and he's constantly trying to get his girlfriend Kirie to, you know, get the fuck out of Dodge with him. But unfortunately, before they can do that, things get crazier and crazier and crazier until we have something that I was not expecting at all. You see, about halfway through the series, there is a massive shift in the direction it takes, and I absolutely loved it. Pardon the pun, but things truly do spiral out of control. You will see things you never thought imaginable. It really mesmerizes you, sucks it in, just like what the spiral is doing to these people, and it's just an absolute joy. I mean, you know, a joy if you like seeing horribly fucked up shit go down. Like his others, of course, some horrific imagery, stuff that really sticks with you. Uzumaki is definitely one of his most popular works. Some of these images are very, very iconic, and this is definitely my favorite work of his so far, and I definitely think it is a must-read. I'm giving this one a 9 out of 10. So there you have it. Those are 3 Junji Ito works. I didn't talk much about the art yet, because I really have the same thing to say for all of them, so let's do that. I think Junji Ito is a fantastic artist. He has a very unique style. It is a little weird reading all of these because they're from all different points of his career, like Tomie and Shiver spans several years. So the evolution of his art is kind of all over the place. His character designs are alright. I think some of them look a bit too similar to each other, but where he really shines is with his disturbing horror imagery. He's so good at making things creepy. Even when like things aren't overtly creepy, there's always this like unsettling atmosphere, and that's something he's really good at, creating a good atmosphere. Creepy shit's always going on, even when it's not directly in your face. The art helps create tension and suspense, and he's just very, very good at what he does, and it's really no surprise that he's as prolific as he is. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on 3 different Junji Ito works. These are all extremely high quality hardcovers, in print and available from Viz. Now they definitely are all on the expensive side, even though I think they're all good. You may want to wait for a sale, but I really think you should pick these up if you're a horror fan. Viz also has a lot of his other works out. I haven't read those yet. I'm planning to do those in the future. We're probably going to make like a Junji Ito Part 2, and I am very much looking forward to that. As for adaptations, there was a Junji Ito anime that came out a few years ago, which had a bunch of his short stories in it. I've heard that it was really bad, so I haven't even bothered with that, but you know, it's a thing. Tomie has gotten like a ton of movies or some shit. I think they also made an Uzumaki movie. I can't see these working in live action at all. But you know, they exist. If you've seen them, let me know what you think. Something to keep your eye on though is that Uzumaki is getting an anime next year. What's particularly notable about this one is that it seems in very, very good hands. It's actually being animated entirely in black and white to look just like the manga. And it has the composer of Hereditary attached to it. The trailer they released was very, very creepy. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing this and seeing how it plays out, because I think it could be really, really awesome. So with that, thank you all so much for watching. You can leave your thoughts on these series and the video in the comments below. And I will see you soon for the fall anime video. I got a lot of stuff to catch up on where I was sick, but we getting back into the swing of things. Have a happy Halloween. Don't eat any razor blades. Long live the Communist Party of China.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.